I am sitting in my car in a Walmart parking lot in the dark. It's freezing outside. My car heater is running. I have 3 blankets wrapped around my knees. And I look down in my hands and they are absolutely filthy. I have my pack of food over beside me. And I remember that day so vividly because all of the emotions of shame just overwhelmed me. I felt so ashamed. You see, the reality that really struck me is that I was one of the invisible homeless, that I had found a way to max over my life, that I would go in and out of work. I would do so many different things that no one knew that I was even homeless. But on this particular day in that Walmart parking lot, as I watched people come and go, I felt all the emotions of being a failure, all the guilt, all the things that I've heard all through my life. MelindaJoy, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm so ashamed of you. You make me ashamed. Everything about you brings shame. And so all of that came back. It came back because my worth, I realized that day, in my vehicle was tied to what I could produce, what I could show, so that when people would ask me, so what do you do in life? That I would have something that would sound magnificent. And what was interesting is that every degree that I had acquired, 2 PhDs, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, and 2 associate degrees, were all tucked away in blankets in the trunk of my car. All of them were tucked in blankets. And what I realized is that somehow I had attached all of my worth again to what was in the trunk of my car. And the reality of that brought me to a place of knowing that I could not continue on the way that I was. And see, what happens is that we attach our worth to certain status, things that come up, or people would say our identities are based on how much we make, how we look, where we live, how we talk, all of those things. Those are things that we attach our identities to. And I had attached my identity to that. Because somewhere along the way, when I was growing up in inner city Chicago and I was 13 years old, a lady told me, MelindaJoy, because of your upbringing, you will never be anything unless you acquire a Ph.D. You will never. Your father was killed. You've never seen a picture of your dad. You grew up in a rat-infested place, wall-to-wall rats, MelindaJoy. You have nothing to show for yourself. And unless you acquire an advanced degree, you will never amount to anything. And so that carried on with me all through life. I never felt that I would ever amount to anything. I carried that identity of the lack of self-worth. I carried the identity that I had to please everybody. I had to look a certain way. I had to be able to prove that I had a PhD. I had to be able to prove that. And I didn't want to tell the real story of how I became homeless, or how I had actually achieved all of my goals in life for a career, that I had one of my greatest career moves ever. I was at the top of the line with what I was making financially. I was traveling all over the world, teaching people about how to value other people as a diversity and equity trainer. I was traveling all over the world saying, you're amazing, you're wonderful. And somehow, when all of the things happened to me in life, I didn't see that for myself. What happened that caused me to be in this place of homelessness? I was driving home one day from my model job, and there was a road rage happening on the streets. And 2 people who were angry with each other, they didn't see me, and they both crashed into me. And they knocked me up a hill and down a viaduct, and all in one moment, in 10 minutes, I was lying on a road. I was looking up at a bridge. I had paramedics working on me in the middle of a road, and the entire road was blocked off for an entire mile. There was a little kid's seat in the middle of the road. And the only thing I remember is that my life is over. my life is over, I'm done. I didn't think about my injuries. It didn't matter about my pain. The only thing I thought about lying under that viaduct is that my life is over. And because of my injuries, I ended up losing my job because I couldn't walk. My job required me to train people to walk all over the world and tell people how wonderful they were and how amazing they were, and I loved doing that. But then after the accident, for 8 months, I had to have someone bathe me. I had to have someone put my clothes on. 4 days a week, I was getting shock treatments for 8 months, going through the pain of loss, the pain of someone else's rage on the road that walked away and I was the only one injured. And somehow in that moment, I realized that my personal narrative that I had created had defined me, had labeled me. And I could no longer tell other people about their value because I didn't believe that I had any. There were a few things that occurred in life that transformed my life and brought me out of this place of shame. The first one was my mom's death. My mother worked as a maid for 46 years, cleaning toilets, doing laundry in a hotel. But my mom was the happiest person ever. She would come home happy. How was your day, Mom? Oh, it was amazing. Guess who I got to see today? I got to dance with the president. The president. And I told my mom one day, I said, Mom, you're brilliant. You can read chemistry tables. Mom, you speak 3 languages. You ever thought about doing something other than putting on a maid's outfit and cleaning toilets? My mom said, I am doing something different. I am helping people to understand their value and worth. Even though society does not see me as a person of worth because I have a maid uniform on, she said, I'm happy. I get to meet people that no one else gets to meet. I made peace with who I am. I love what I do. And I remember my mom telling me, you have got to come to peace with who you are. No matter how many degrees you earn, how many jobs you have, how much you try to impress people. I remember my mom saying to me, when all the applause has stopped, when people are not clapping for you anymore, if you lose everything you have, and this was before I even had an accident. My mom said, if you lose everything you have, can you still see yourself as a woman of worth? And she said, until you get to that place, you will not understand what it really means to truly be the authentic you. And so I learned that from my mom. And after she died, I thought, what a beautiful soul and how she loved life. And my mom said, I'm a value keeper. That's my business. My business is every person I see, I want them to know that you have value, you have worth, you have dignity, even when they can't see that in me. And so I learned that from my mom. She said, be yourself. Don't be a copy, be an original. The second thing that transformed my life was I allowed myself to be embedded in cultures, places where I felt uncomfortable. I wanted to learn about different people. I wanted to learn outside of the United States culture. What does it mean? What does worth look like in Panama? What does worth look like in the jungles of Ecuador? What does worth look like in Ethiopia, where people have nothing and they're literally impoverished? What does it look like? And so I had this opportunity to travel. I took off for a year, and I traveled all over the world. I lived on Native American reservations. I worked in places in AIDS clinics. I was overseas, and I saw people who loved life, and they had nothing. I saw people who would walk for 2 miles with no shoes on, and when they would arrive at their place, they would be so happy and so elated. And I was like, what is it that's causing this? And then I began to think, because their worth is not tied to labels. It's not tied to what they've accomplished. It's not tied to how good their hair looks, what size they are. It was none of that. They loved life. They loved doing life together. And as I began to embed myself in these cultures, I was invited to Hanoi, Vietnam to teach. And it transformed my life. I got off the plane in Vietnam at midnight, and I looked over at the gate where people wait for passengers, and I saw all these flowers, and I saw shopping carts full of flowers. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's a dignitary on the plane, and I didn't even know it. And when I got closer, I saw my name up on signs. We can't wait to meet you. We already are in love with you. We want to be with you. It transformed my life. By the time that I arrived there to that shopping cart full of flowers, I tell you, my life was transformed. They didn't know about degrees or any of that. They knew I was coming to be their friend. I spent years in Vietnam with my friends, sitting in alleys, talking about life, eating a bowl of pho, learning about life in a country where I was the only person who looked like me in Hanoi. And as I walked down the streets of Hanoi, people would stop and they would stare. And then after a while, the second year, they would go, oh, there she is. There's our friend. There she is. There she is. And so I learned about value. I learned that value is not ascribed it wasn't ascribed to me by what I could accomplish. It was just people who loved me for who I was. And then the last thing that really transformed my life and really broke shame off me was that I did a personal audit. And that personal audit, I had to look at my life, not others, not what others were saying about me. I had to look at the narrative that I have built. I had built when I lived in an inner city housing project. The narrative of saying that I never seen a picture of my dad. The narratives of you would never amount to anything, Melinda Joy. The narratives of you have to be this size, you have to look this way, your hair have to be like this, you have to acquire this. And when I eliminated the narratives and just looked in the mirror one day and said, I am enough. I am enough. It doesn't matter what's attached to me. I am enough. It changed my life. And then I was able to value other people. I was able to say to people who had nothing, who were homeless, I was able to say, you are a person of value. You are a person of worth. I was able to say to a person who's in the hospital who couldn't bathe themselves, who had to have someone turn them over every day, to see parts of their body that they don't want anyone to see, that you are enough, you are valuable. I was able to say to the person in the wheelchair, you are amazing, you are enough, you have value, you have worth. I was able to say to the person who just feels so devalued that you are amazing and you are enough. I want to leave you with this call to action. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and said, I am enough? I am enough. I am enough. It doesn't matter what I accomplish or what I haven't accomplished. I'm enough. And then I'm not saying that you cannot enjoy your achievements or accomplishments. You can celebrate that. But none of that should be how we define ourselves. That should not be how our value and our worth is communicated. What was so interesting is that even when I was homeless and I would go to a soup kitchen and people would ask me my name, and I would always say, please call me doctor. And they would look and go, okay, you sit at the same table. But I was so ingrained in, please refer to me as doctor. And at some point, I realized that I didn't have any kind of narrative that caused me to love myself. So I want to end with this, the call to action. Look in the mirror and say to yourself, you're more than enough, that you are enough. And then I'm a person of faith, and I believe the last thing is that I found places where I could find my peace, my faith, prayer, those times of meditation, of just being by myself. I found my peace there. Find your place of peace. Find your place that's not just tied to what you can produce, what you can show to someone else. Find your place. Just think, maybe this world could become a more compassionate place, a more loving place, a place where we wouldn't be afraid of each other because of our races, because of our ethnicity. We wouldn't be afraid of each other. We wouldn't be fearful of each other because we would see each other as human beings and we would realize that we are enough. Shame off you, not shame on you. Thank you.